Hello, squirrel listeners. I apologize for not reading yesterday. I actually did read, but something happened to it. So here I go, and I was just too aggravated to do it again. So here we go. Picking up where we left off in chapter 12. So this will be part 2. Last thing I said was puts them in a good humor, talking about how a well-dressed lady, blah, blah, blah. I'll go back and read that one. It is a well-known fact that dress plays a very important part in the lives of most women, and even the most sensible cannot help owning sometimes how much happiness they owe to a becoming gown, gracefully arranged hair, or a bonnet, which brings out the best points in their faces and puts them in a good humor. That's the last sentence I read. A great man was once heard to say that what first attracted him to his well-beloved wife was seeing her in a white muslin dress with a light blue shawl on the chair behind her. The dress caught his eye, and stopping to admire that, the wearer's intelligent conversation interested his mind, and in no time the woman's sweetness won his heart. It's not the finest dress which does the most execution, I fancy, but that which best interprets individual taste and character. Wise people understand this, and everybody is more influenced by it than they know, perhaps. Polly was not very wise. I think she is. But she felt that everyone about her found something more attractive than usual in her, and modestly attributed Tom's devotion, Sidney's interest, and Frank's undisguised admiration to the new bonnet, or more likely, to that delightful combination of cashmere silk and swan's down which, like Charity's mantle, seemed to cover a multitude of sins in most people's eyes, and exalt the little music teacher to the rank of a young lady. Polly scoffed at this sort of thing sometimes, but tonight she accepted it without a murmur, rather enjoyed it, in fact. Let her bracelet shine before the eyes of all men, and felt that it was good to seem comely in their sight. She forgot one thing, however, that her own happy spirits gave the crowning charm to a picture which everyone liked to see a blithe young girl enjoying herself with all her heart. The music and the light, costume, and company excited Polly and made many things possible which at most times she would never have thought of saying or doing. She did not mean to flirt, but somehow it flirted itself. And she couldn't help it, for once started it was hard to stop, with Tom goading her on and Sidney looking at her with new interest in his eyes. Polly's flirting was such a very mild imitation of the fashionable thing that Trix and company would not have recognized it, but it did very well for a beginner, and Polly understood that night wherein the fascination of it lay, for she felt as if she had found a new gift all of a sudden and was learning how to use it, knowing that it was dangerous, yet finding its chief charm in that very fact. Tom didn't know what to make of her at first, though he thought the change uncommonly becoming, and finally decided that Polly had taken his advice and was setting her cap for Sid, as he gracefully expressed it. Sidney, being a modest man, thought nothing of the kind, but simply fancied that little Polly was growing up to be a very charming woman. He had known her since her first visit and had always liked the child. This winter he'd been interested in the success of her plans and had done what he could to help them, but he never thought of falling in love with Polly till that night. Then he began to feel that he did not fully appreciate his young friend, that she was such a bright and lovable girl. It was a pity. She should not always be gay and pretty and enjoy herself, that she would make a capital wife for somebody, and perhaps it was about time to think of settling, as his sister often said. These thoughts came and went as he watched the white figure in front, felt the enchantment of the music, and found everybody unusually blithe and beautiful. He heard the opera many times, but it had never seemed so fine before, perhaps because he had never happened to have had an ingenious young face so near him in which the varying emotions born of the music and the romance it portrayed came and went so eloquently that it was impossible to help reading them. Polly did not know that this was why he leaned down so often to speak to her with an expression which she did not understand but liked very much nevertheless. "Don't shut your eyes, Polly. They're so full of mischief tonight. I like to see them," said Tom, after idly wondering for a minute if she knew how long and curly her lashes were. "I don't wish to look affected, but the music tells the story so much better than the acting that I don't care to look on half the time," answered Polly, hoping Tom wouldn't see the tears she had so cleverly suppressed. "Now, I like the acting best. The music is all very fine, I know, but it does seem so absurd for people to go round telling tremendous secrets at the top of their voices. I can't I can't get used to it." "That's because you've more common sense than romance. I don't mind the absurdity, and quite long to go and comfort that poor girl with the broken heart," said Polly with a sigh as the curtain fell on a most affecting tableau. "What's his name is a great jack not to see that she adores him. In real life we fellows ain't such bats as all that," observed Tom, who had decided opinions on many subjects that he knew very little about and expressed them with great candor. A curious smile passed over Polly's face, and she put up her glass to hide her eyes as she said, "I think you are bats sometimes, but women are taught to wear masks, and that accounts for it, I suppose." "I don't agree. There's precious little masking nowadays. Wish there was a little more sometimes," added Tom, thinking of several blooming damsels whose beseeching eyes had begged him not to leave them to wither on the parrot stem. "I hope not, but I guess there is a good deal more than anyone would suspect." Gosh. "What could you know about broken hearts and blighted beings?" asked Sidney, smiling at the girl's pensive tone. Polly glanced up at him, and her face dimpled and shone again as she answered, laughing, "Not much. My time is to come. I can't imagine you walking about the earth can't imagine you walking around the world with your back hair down, bewailing a hard-hearted lover," said Tom. "Neither can I. That wouldn't be my way. No, Miss Polly would let concealment prey on her damask cheeks, and still smile on in the novel fashion, or turn sister of charity and nurse the heartless lover through smallpox or some other contagious disease, and die seraphitically, leaving him the agonies of remorse and tardy love." Polly gave Sidney an indignant look as he said that in a slow satirical way that nettled her very much, for she hated to be thought sentimental. "That's not my way either," she said decidedly. I'd try to outlive it and if I couldn't, I'd try to be the better for it. Disappointment needn't make a woman a fool. Nor an old maid if she's pretty and good, remember that, and don't visit the sins of one blockhead on all the rest of mankind, said Tom, laughing at her earnestness. I don't think there is the slightest possibility of Miss Polly's being either, added Sidney with a look which made it evident that concealment had not seriously damaged Polly's damask cheek as yet. There's Clara Bird. I haven't seen her but once since she was married. How pretty she looks, said Polly, retired behind the big glass again, thinking the chat was becoming rather personal. Now there's a girl who tried a different cure for unrequited affection from any you mentioned. People say she was fond of Belle's brother. He didn't reciprocate, but went off to India to spoil his constitution, so Clara married a man 20 years older than she is, and consoles herself by being the best dressed woman in the city. That accounts for it, said Polly, when Tom's long whisper ended. For what? The tired look in her eyes. I don't see it, said Tom, after a survey through the glass. Didn't expect you would. I see what you mean. A good many women have it nowadays, said Sidney over Polly's shoulder. What's she tired of? The old gentleman? Asked Tom. And herself, added Polly. You've been reading French novels. I know you have. That's just the way the heroines go on, cried Tom. I haven't read one, but it's evident you have, young man, and you'd better stop. I don't care for 'em, only do it to keep up my French. But how came you to be so wise, ma'am? Observation, sir. I like to watch faces and seldom see a grown-up one that looks perfectly happy. True for you, Polly. No more you do. Maybe no more than you do. Now I think of it, I don't know but one that always looks so, and there it is. Where? Asked Polly with interest. Look straight before you, and you'll see it. Polly did look, but all she saw was her own face in the little mirror of the fan, which Tom held up, and peeped over with a laugh in his eyes. Do I look happy? I'm glad of that, and Polly surveyed herself with care. Both young men thought it was girlish vanity and smiled at its naive display, but Polly was looking for something deeper than beauty, and was glad not to find it. Rather a pleasant little prospect, hey, Polly? My bonnet is straight, and that's all I care about. Did you ever see a picture of Beau Brummel? Asked Penny quickly. No. Well, there he is, modernized, and turning the fan, she showed him herself. Any more portraits in your gallery? Asked Sidney, as if he liked to share all the nonsense going. One more. What do you call it? The portrait of a gentleman. And the little glass reflected a gratified face for the space of 2 seconds. Thank you. I'm glad I don't disgrace my name, said Sidney, looking down into the merry blue eyes that thanked him silently for many of the small kindnesses that a woman never can forget. Very good, Polly. You're getting on fast, whispered Tom, patting his yellow kids approvingly. Be quiet. Dear me, how warm it is. And Polly gave him a frown that delighted its soul. And I think it must stop there, guys. Oh my gosh. How much more? There's not a whole bunch more, but I get so sleepy again. Doggone. I hate that. Thought coming on earlier I wouldn't be so snoozy. Well, it's about blingo time. If you got your numbers into V, about 20 more minutes, as I'm saying it. Love to you all. Be sweet, don't be ugly. Bye-bye.